Welcome back to part 5 of this Milky Way editing video tutorial. In this video we're going to convert our focus stacked image from the previous one to a smart object, and then we're going to do some edits to the ground and the sky of the image. So basically we're going to do this in Adobe Camera Raw, and that's very similar to Lightroom. It just kind of looks a little different, but it has all the same controls, everything that you're used to. You could technically export this, do it in Lightroom, and then bring it back in if you want. But by doing it, I like to just kind of keep everything self-contained in one program if possible, all my edits, histories, etc. And actually, when I first started doing Milky Way photography and editing, I would actually do all of my edits in Lightroom after I'd done the focus stack here. But the problem I found with Lightroom is the performance is just god-awful in it. I would make an adjustment layer for the sky and one for the ground, and the Milky Way, and it just by the second or third adjustment layer, Lightroom just couldn't handle it anymore, and it would just get too slow. And eventually, I would make so many edits that I actually had to send the image out of Lightroom into Photoshop and make some more edits there because it couldn't handle them anymore. So for Milky Way pictures now, I've totally switched over to just editing only in Photoshop, and Photoshop really can handle having just a ton of edits. It's not afraid of that whatsoever. Okay, so getting more back on track here. We have our focus stacked image here. It's at the bottom. We're gonna go and duplicate that twice. So we're gonna go here and here, and then I'm just gonna name this one sky, and we'll call this one ground. And then we're gonna take both of these and drag them into our smart objects folder that we established in the last tutorial. And then I'm going to convert this one here to a smart object. So just right click and go to convert to smart object. And that's gonna, converting it to a smart object will take, 15 seconds or so. So just wait a second here. It's a little bit slow on my computer right now because I'm doing the screen recording software. Then we'll go to ground here, and we're gonna also convert that to a smart object. So we'll do that one more time. And we'll give that 15 seconds there to do its job. So you can see everything we do here is kind of a cumulative effect. We did the alignment, which reduced the noise, and then we went to focus stack things, and now we're working off of that previous history. So now we're working off of this aligned and focus stacked image with these two new ones. The next step we're going to do is we're actually going to make some edits to the sky and the ground. So here, this is going to be a little tricky to kind of know what you want. And actually, come to think of it, I'm going to grab our mask from down here, and if you hit the Alt key, and I don't know what it is on a Mac, I'm not a big Mac person, but if you hold the Alt key here and just drag this up and let go on sky, it's going to take that mask and just move it from here to, or copy it from here to there. And I didn't know that until a month ago, and that was a really big time saver. It just took a lot more work to move things around. So we have that there. We're going to click on our smart object here for the sky. We'll go to filter, and then we're going to go to camera raw filter. And this is something that kind of talking to people online. I feel like a lot of people who use Lightroom aren't aware of the camera raw filter in Photoshop. And when it opens up here, you'll see it looks very similar to Lightroom. And as far as all your edits or your editable controls, you have adjustment brushes and your graduated filter. Up here you still have your curve and your sharpening and your changing individual colors, split toning. It has everything that Lightroom has basically. I don't think there's anything that's missing. As far as the editing of a photo, it doesn't have the asset management side, but it has all the editable stuff here. The only thing I will say is it's just kind of in a crappier package. I don't know why, but Adobe, I don't know. I can never get used to the Camera Raw look. I prefer the way it kind of all looks in Lightroom and stuff, but kind of is what it is. So what we're going to be looking at now is we're going to be looking at really just the sky, and this can be a little hard for your eyes to kind of know that because you're kind of be editing everything at once, but because we have a mask on this layer, it's really just going to touch where we have that mask. So with that said, we're going to just start making some edits. So I actually I've actually done this whole image and I finished it, but now I'm kind of redoing it for you, so I kind of know what I want to do here. But in this case, I can see that, you know, the sky is a little bit kind of flat. I'd like to give some contrast to it, and you know, I'd like to maybe kind of give it a little more color. So I'm gonna go to the tint here and bring it up to 24. I really like kind of a bluish purplish sky myself. For the temperature, I'm going to maybe throw that up 2 notches there, so it's still kind of a gray feeling to it, but it's just a little bit more purple now. The next thing I would usually do is kind of work on the contrast. So for whites, I'd maybe go, I don't know, 45, and you can see that really brightened it up a lot. But then I'm going to bring it back down with the blacks to maybe 39. And here you can see that kind of brought out the details in the Milky Way. When you do that though, you may notice there's a little bit of kind of too much with it, so we could probably remove some of the clarity on the Milky Way here. We'll come back to that. But I might give the sky a little bit of saturation too, so let's do 20 there, I think. And now we still kind of have a black sky, but we still just got a little something extra going on with it, right? And maybe with the exposure, let's just try that for now. 0.2. What else could we do? I can see there's kind of a vignette around here, so you can see because I used such a low f-stop, like f1.4 or maybe even f2, I guess. It's got that vignette with the Rokinon lens. So let's go to lens corrections here, and maybe just kind of see. Let's try 50. That 50 seems like that. Well, 500, no. 50 seems like that maybe is a good job there. I mean, there's a little up here, but people won't really be looking in that area. But I think overall, that was a good improvement. And then one other thing, like I mentioned before, the Milky Way is looking a little bit too overdone, if you will, right now. So I'm going to go to an adjustment brush here, and let's get rid of any previous settings I may have had. If you go up to this here and you go to reset, it'll undo everything. And then we just try -20. Oops, -20 there. And then, you know, just like Lightroom, this is all works in the same premise. If you go to mask down here, actually no, overlay will give it a blue overlay. So as we paint, you'll see that. And we're just gonna kind of go where the Milky Way is here. So let's see. Let's paint that in. Okay, I had to check that actually. It's a little too big, I would say. Let's delete it. Start over. And I found that in Photoshop, even though my circle on the screen is this big, it actually it's bigger than that. So it's a little bit of trial and error. Let's paint that in like that. So what we're trying to do here is just give the Milky Way a little less grunginess to it. So we turn off the mask, so you can see it's very subtle, but that seems like it just kind of. One thing I would say this pretty much for almost every you know, astro Milky Way photographer on Facebook that I see. It seems like a lot of times the clarity sliders cranked up pretty darn high for Milky Way photos, and it does bring out the details in it, but it does create a lot of noise too. The image might look good as a thumbnail, but when you look at it full screen, it's just really processed pretty hard with that clarity slider. So it's something to try to you know, use sparingly if you can help it. So just looking at this here, I think that's pretty good. For now, I'm just gonna let that be. So we'll hit OK, and this always takes a second to do here. And looks like my mask is actually on reversed right now, so we're gonna click on that and hit Control I, and there it flipped it around so that the sky is now using the changes we just made. So now we're going to do the same thing again, but now for the ground. So we'll go click on ground and then go to Camera Raw filter. Excuse me. And from here we're actually going to do edits, but just for the ground area of this. So right now it's a little, maybe a little bit too greenish looking, underexposed, I would say. Um, you know, probably needs some saturation if possible. You can see that this arch part here is maybe just a little bit overexposed, so we're going to try to bring back some of the detail there. What else could we do here? I think that's pretty much everything. So let's start with maybe, I like to start with tint a lot, so let's maybe throw 28 at that, and the other one we did 24 as you recall. And maybe just a little less, do -3 for this. See if that looks good, I think. Maybe just a little less contrast. We're gonna drop the highlights down because of that arch there, and we're gonna try another technique here to bring that back too. Whites, let's try +30, and blacks maybe -30. So to give it just a little contrast. I know we removed it over here, but here we'll just bring a little back. Maybe throw in 5 for saturation just to bring a little color out there. What else? I think that's pretty good there. We could go over to the color area here. Maybe for the hue, this is looking a little, could maybe give it a little more orange. So we'll go down to maybe -6 for that. And then I think that's pretty good. Maybe the last thing I want to do is just bring back some of the highlights here. So go back and reset this. And here we can paint kind of lazily with this because we have that mask on it, remember? So if we go over here and we just make this a lot smaller, maybe drop this to like -40 for highlights. Oops. Do that 0. Let's try this, and we can just kind of paint in anywhere where the highlights are maybe a bit blown, if you will. Just trying to make sure we get that as best as possible. So here we can see a before and after of that. Just to bring back some of that detail there. And here we can turn that off. So zoom out here. That's pretty good. We're going to be making a lot more changes yet in the next couple steps. But this is really just kind of the pre-work that we would do in here. So we'll hit OK. I think that's pretty good. Let's see what else. I'm going to cheat right now. So part of my tutorial, like I said, I've already done this once. I wanted to see how close I am to the other one. So yeah, the ground is definitely not right. So this is where I want to get it to. Let's bring it up the Camera Raw filter, my other one here, quick. See where I went wrong. So far, that all looks pretty much the same, does it not? My whites, I did the whites too low, and there was not. I didn't do the clarity. All right, dope. Let's go back here. Bring up Camera Raw again. I knew I was off. So whites 50, nothing with the blacks. Clarity down 30. So that looks much better now. Not sure what I was thinking. Let's just look back and forth here quick. Yeah, that looks pretty much the same, does it not? So there looks like I removed the vignette from the other one too. So we'll go into Camera Raw here quick. I tried to write all these down, but it would be difficult to remember them all. Throw that up to 50, hit OK. So there, our vignette is removed, the same as the sky now. So let's go back here and just do a quick compare. And they pretty much identical. You can see there's a little shift from my other one, but other than that, and the highlights here are maybe we want to do that a little better too. So we'll go here, and maybe we'll just drop that down. So in my other one I had it at 40, but maybe we can do better than that. So let's do 60 maybe even 70. And then think I'm gonna paint out some of this other area here. I don't think it was, so we'll go to erase over here. We're just gonna paint out some of the darker areas. Maybe turn off the mask here. As you can see, we maybe don't want it quite that harsh. It's kind of bringing away some of the focus up here. Because remember, at the end of the day, there's, you know, every image you do, you want people to look in a certain spot. As the photographer, it's up to you to get them to look there. And for me, I want people to look at the arch in the Milky Way. And because in this image they were perfectly aligned with one another, I feel like it's a pretty good composition, getting people to look where I want. And you know, the fact that the Milky Way is actually in the arch, I think is pretty awesome too. So whatever we can do to get that area to look, kind of bring people's attention there, I think that's the best option. So hit OK. And that just did a little tweak there. So maybe just flip back and forth. See, it's pretty similar. But overall, yeah, I think that's a pretty good image there. We have kind of our purple feeling to the image, and that we're going to start to play with in the next round of edits. And then we have, you know, just the overall tone of it's pretty good. And this is a good opportunity too here to go to our mask and to see, you know, is there any kind of weirdness happening right now? Because again, remember, we're only editing we're only letting that edit shine through for that certain areas. So it really doesn't seem too bad right now. You can see there's some fringing here, so that's something that we'll clean up a little bit down the road. I find too there's always like some fringing there and stuff like that. So that's all stuff. And again, if you don't care about that, if it's just going to be something that goes on social media and, you know, people aren't going to be zooming in at 100% on the image like this, you can probably skip it. But I always try to go a little extra mile and get as good as possible. So there we've kind of looked over editing the smart objects, and this you can do to taste however you think it would look best. Is up to you. It's kind of your Lightroom edits, if you will. But after that, we're going to move on to the pixel layers in the next round of edits, and that's going to be some of the other kind of cleanup stuff. Pixel layers is a lot of cleanup stuff. And then from there, finally, we'll get into the stackable stuff with the adjustment layers, and that's some really fun enhancements to the image that will really make it pop. So check out the next videos, and we'll go from there.